Shalom, shalom, and here's some chappy thoughts on this weekend's gospel, and there's so much to say. But I'm going to start with this. Before the gospel today is Jesus giving the mission of the 12, right? But right before then, it's about Jesus being rejected by the people when he goes to his hometown. And Jesus, you have to be able to understand, was a nobody. He was just the son of Mary, one they would say, which I guess was maybe a sly way of calling him a bastard, sort of thing, like that this man with no dad, or whatever it may be, for this time of when Jesus was alive and kind of the people and the type of circumstances that he was facing. And so in this one, Jesus is preaching in the synagogue, and people are saying, where did you get all of this? And what is this wisdom? And who has given you authority to speak this wisdom? And I think we can see two things here. One is that sometimes people are just so quick to judge from where these ideas are coming from and who's speaking them that they don't even hear any of the beauty or any of the truth, because there's so much busy of judgment of where it's coming from, or it's not from my tradition, or it's not from how I'm used to hearing it, or whatever it may be. I think that's one. And another thing is this, is sometimes that's the voice in our very own heads, saying, who am I to say this, or who am I to think that, or who am I to think I can ever be anything different than what I always have been. But this is the beautiful news of the gospel. I mean, this gospel doesn't teach us how we can be better. The gospel says, look at who your true self of who you already are, and then you can become new ways of thinking, new ways of being. It's really quite astounding and beautiful. So Jesus, this nobody, is preaching and then heals some people, and then people still don't believe, and it says Jesus is astounded by their unbelief. And I mean, we see that in our society too, that we can be so trapped in our own little comfort zone that even if there's something good and beautiful happening, or even if I'm so stuck in my way of thinking, and somehow I see somebody being treated absolutely horrific, I can somehow explain away for why that was deserved, or whatever it may be. And I can't imagine. And yet there's many people on the outside saying, well, what do you mean you can't see that that's wrong? It's hurting somebody. I don't understand. And so it's like these parallels into today. And so then Jesus is getting the 12 ready within today's gospel. And I want to talk about honesty, walking together, and changing the tapes in here / wiping off our shoes, wiping off our feet. So here we go. First off, Jesus is completely honest. Jesus doesn't give a sugar-coated life of like, just release and realize there's sunshine and rainbows everywhere. He also probably didn't have that accent, but Jesus is completely honest. And in today's gospel, I love how Nadia Boltz-Weber says it. She says, or has said in previous preaching, she says he gives the worst pep talk ever in the history of the world. His pep talk is like he gathers the 12, and if you think of like a sports, we're like, you're gonna do this, and we can do these things, and hands in the middle, go team. But Jesus says, like, it's gonna be really hard, and you're probably not gonna have enough to eat, and there's not gonna be lots places to stay, and sometimes there will be, and then there's gonna be people that hate you, and it's like the world's worst motivational speech ever. And but it's honest. It's honest. And the first thing Jesus does, though, is to say you're not alone, and sends them out 2 by 2. And he doesn't send them out 2 by 2 just to make them exactly carbon copies of yourself, but to preach the good news of the gospel, which is, hey, did you know that you are loved? Did you know that you are not defined by these things that you've done? And do you know that you are love, and that and that your core of being is love, and that you are forgiven, and that like there's this grace that's all around you. It's this complete beauty. So Jesus doesn't sugarcoat it and tells them this is going to be really, really difficult. And then the second thing I want to say is that this wiping off your feet, it says in the Gospels, and when you are not welcomed into a home, it says wipe off your feet and leave. And that like we cling to these things. We cling to things that hurt us, or we cling to something someone says, or we cling to ways that we think we have to be, or that that we can never change from. And I think we've got a message here that's saying, wipe off your feet, beloved, let it go, surrender, and see how this can help you become anew. Don't cling to it. Change. Don't have the tape of, well, I always do this, and try to instead try to have the tape of surrender and grace within you, that nobody can choose for you. But we can be beacons of light for each other, that we can turn on that switch within ourselves. And so when they're walking together, and then they're changing the tapes, and it says in testimony against them, wipe off your feet in testimony against them. You can read that as something negative, of be like, whoa, I'm right and you're wrong, so peace out, sucker. But I see it as you wipe off your feet to say, you know what? You don't define who I am. This negative circumstance, this person that did this thing, you don't define who I am. I am a beautiful child of God, and I am loved. And so in today's gospel, there's this complete honesty, which we are called for in our lives, to be able to be completely honest. To walk together. So if we only have a faith or a spirituality, if you will, only within ourselves, it's never challenged. It can't grow. It can also just become a mirror image of ourselves. So to make sure that we're doing this together, and we're walking together, and we're being light for each other, and we're growing from each other, and we're sharing these things within ourselves, and then to change the tapes or wipe off your feet when somebody doesn't accept you for who you are, or when somebody, or like if you see somebody asserting themselves and you're trying to give them the message of love and they just won't hear you, just to being able to realize that you can be a shining light for that person, but you can't make the choice for them. So to change that tape and wipe off your feet, and then to continue on your way and your journey of forgiveness and newness. Grace and peace, friends.